Okay, hello everyone. Let's talk about, let me launch case study here. Case study research. Is this it right here? Case study research. Okay, let's talk about case study research, Module 12. Welcome to Module 12, case study research. Okay, what is case study? Okay, case study is an investigation of a phenomenon that occurs within a specific context for the purpose of answering a specific question within that context. The focus of a case study investigation is on a unit of study known as a bounded system: classroom, a school, a university, a fraternity, you know, any different types of group, a gang, high school kids at Sunnyside High School, whatever it is that you're going to study, you should be able to put parameters around it. And once you do that, you have yourself a case study. Generally, the amount of data, qualitative, quantitative, is endless, and that's why it's a case study. That's not really about the method, but it's really more about understanding that specific context in depth. Okay, it is an all-encompassing method within boundaries as to what type of data is collected within the bounded system. There are really no limitations on what type of data you can collect. Case study is used pretty heavily in high schools, and I mean not high schools, K-12 schools, K-12 education, because generally they're studying schools, and generally the students or administrators or teachers are studying their own school. Okay, so the purpose is to investigate that bounded system and to have an all-encompassing method within the boundaries as to what type of data will be collected within the bounded system. Okay, sometimes you don't even determine the methods. Sometimes people that are helping you within that bounded system have already existing data at their disposal to use, or really are may make recommendations as to what data you want to collect. Okay, and when you use the case study approach, this is when researchers want to answer a descriptive question or an explanatory question. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that is. When the researcher is interested in studying process or processes in a bounded system, when describing the context of the study or how the program or innovation has been implemented. And it's useful when researchers are interested in providing causal explanations. And what's a causal explanation? It's really cause and effect, right? This happened because something previous to it caused it to happen, right? Okay. All right, so characteristics of a case study. These are, they can be described as three different particular types. You have the particularistic case study, okay? And this is really focused on a specific happening, particularly like a specific event. If you're looking at the gang member study, it may be a specific shooting or a specific fight that happened at the school or something like that. It could be descriptive, and that's an explanation of the variables and analysis of their interaction, right? And heuristic could be providing new insight into the phenomenon or the relationships that you're studying. Okay, design the case study. What is the process? The first thing is, what is the question that you want to ask? That is the most important step. So let me see, if I was maybe studying gangs in maybe downtown Fresno, maybe the question may be, why is it that, gang members do not do well in school? Or why is it that youth are being recruited by gangs at a higher rate than usual? Things like that are the kind of questions that would lead me to really figure how it is that I'm going to design that case study. And how will you use the case study that is being defined? You got to define the variables. What is the role of theory development? How does theory support, the choice of participation? A lot of times, sometimes you have to wait for the theory piece of it till after the data is collected. Okay. And what is the theoretical and conceptual framework? And this is key in determining the direction of the research, or sometimes key in determining the direction of the write-up and how you're going to write it up, what things you want to focus on. Okay. And it is also appropriate to do a single, multiple, or collective case study. So a single, maybe, if we're looking at the K-12 example, maybe one school. Multiple, maybe like a school district. and collective may be, the county schools, all the schools within the county, or something of that nature. How do you select the sample? Right, the researcher is charged with selecting the unit of analysis. You use a lot of times purposeful sampling is the most common, and if you review our sampling lesson, right, purposeful sampling is sampling with a purpose, right? You're not going to just sample anybody. You're going to sample those individuals that have something very meaningful to say about your case study. So you sample with a purpose. You select people with a purpose. Screening of a sample is imperative for an effective study. Making sure that they fit your study correctly. Having maybe sometime a pre-interview or pre-focus group questionnaire that ask questions. Do you belong to this, or are you this? That is going to help you determine that you got the right people that are going to be part of that study based on your purposeful sampling. And the qualitative sampling is selecting a small number of individuals. Remember, qualitative, small number; quantitative, large number. Okay, and understanding the phenomenon under investigation, selecting a sample from which the most can be learned. That's purposeful sampling. Okay, screening to avoid problems, reviewing documents of the site that you're going to be studying, conducting informal interviews to determine whether people are going to be willing to participate in the study, and determining particular experiences as they are key informants. Right now, I'm doing a study on workforce development, and we're getting ready to do a focus group in a couple of days here. And from that focus group, the people that have the most meaningful things to say are the ones that we're going to select to do interviews with. Okay, so we are going to be applying purposeful sampling, and it is a case study that we're doing. This work study program, it's a particular program in a particular city, preparing people for particular trades. Okay, data collection techniques, it's all generally qualitative methods: narrative, inquiry, interviews, focus groups. All of those are valid. All of those are good methods to choose for your case study. The use of multiple methods and analysis techniques allow for the researcher to triangulate data in order to strengthen the findings and the conclusions. Triangulation, the word triangulation is your friend, okay? Always remember triangulation. Sometimes in your studies, especially when you're doing a master's and you're doing a research study, sometimes you don't have that privilege because you're under such a time crunch. But generally, if you want to have a strong study, you need to be able to triangulate your data. Okay, analyzing multiple case studies, right? So it's really the same issue that we just studied, the same application, the same methods, but really you're looking at multiple sites. So this may be, if you're looking at a school, you may be at multiple schools that maybe have those characteristics. Say you're studying the bilingual education. You want to select multiple schools, but they have to have bilingual education similar in the way that that school has it. If you're doing the gang study in downtown Fresno, you might have to study other gangs and other sort of downtowns, maybe across California. Okay, this allows the researcher to make generalizations about the case, right? And not just saying, oh, well, it's unique to my city. No, this is, I looked at 4 or 5 urban areas and I looked at gangs there, and there's something bigger happening in the state of California with gangs. You're able to make that generalization across the entire state of California, if that was the study that you did. Okay, so this is also the use of a matrix for data analysis. I think everybody knows generally what the word matrix is, right? The matrix is really when you have the rows and the columns, okay? The x-axis and the y-axis, and all of them are fillable. All of them should be filled, right? Both x and y-axis. So this one here, the example, this is an unordered meta matrix. It's a master chart with descriptive data for each site. So the first one is this is your interviewing principles, right? So you're going to maybe put the name of the principal or the school in which the principal is located, all the way down 1 through 5. You're going to talk about their feelings about educational change. You'll be able to see them across all 5. Interactions with the central office, interactions with teachers, and strategies for dealing with change, right? And so you kind of already get an understanding. This is going to be a study of principles and looking at sort of change and looking at, anything having to do with system change, okay? All right, so the use of the matrix for data analysis. You also have a site-ordered descriptive matrix, which orders the data so that the researcher can see the differences between high, low, and medium sites. So if we were to go back to, the principal one that I just showed you, you may have to do maybe more than 5 principles, and maybe you organize them. You put in one category those that are, highly resistant to change, medium ones that those that, are not resistant or unresistant, and then you have those that are very low resistant to change. Okay. Then you have the site ordered predictor outcome matrix, which is really an interpretive model that allows the researcher to order the sites in a way in which he or she can understand the variables that contribute the most directly to the outcomes. So you may have to continually reorder them. If we're going to go with that principle and say we didn't have 5 principles, but we had 10, right? Maybe you organize them based on those that are high resistant to change versus low resistant to change. And then you may look at, you may have to reorder them if you're looking at how they communicate with the district office, those that have good communication with district office and those that have low communication or bad communication. You reorganize them based on what you're looking for. And you can reorganize them many times, to be able to ultimately look at comparisons across all of these different variables in the matrix. You have a time-ordered meta matrix that displays the descriptive data from several sites and include events that occurred over time that may have contributed to the outcome of the study. So time-ordered means that you're not organizing them based on principle. You organize them based on when they happened, right? And so, maybe let's look at a study that might utilize this is, say it was a study of, I don't know, what would be a good one where you use time-ordered meta matrix? Maybe first-year teachers and how they, how they're experiencing their first year of teaching. Yeah, you might want to start with, before school started, right before the year. Maybe if you can interview them in the summer before they started. You may start also, another one is the ones that you interview maybe the first month. Maybe then after that, those that you interview towards the end of the first semester, those that you interview the second semester, and those that you interview at the end of the year. And I think the reason you have a time-ordered meta matrix is because teachers may have different feelings throughout the school year that develop, and it may just not just be one. It may be, multiple. Maybe at the very beginning they're very excited about their job, and by the end of the year they may be very stressed and maybe not even know this is the right job for them. Who knows, right? That's just something that you would find if you have a time-ordered meta matrix. And then you have the scatter plots, which are visual representations of the data to show relationships between data points that help identify. So, and a scatter plot, you may have still an x and y axis. On the x-axis, which goes from left to right, you may have, I don't know, sort of, if we're looking at the principal study, maybe resistant to change, right? On the y-axis, from top to bottom and bottom to top, you may have communication with district office, right? And as you see, the more they're resistant to change, the less communication they have with district office, right? But you would not know unless you plotted all the principles in there, right? And into that scatter plot, where you begin to see sort of patterns developing through that scatter plot. Okay. The use of the matrix for data analysis. So when you have a site-ordered effect matrix, allows you to sort through the site and display possible cause-effect relationships among the focus of the study and the outcomes. Then you have causal models that display probable causal connections between variables of study. This causal model here, what we have here is the x-axis are all the variables, the y-axis, which is top to down, school district level, central office, principals, teachers, right? You got whether there's committee structures, keeping in touch, the facade, change strategy and action, status quo, personal beliefs, accountability, compliance, motivation, right? All of them have different areas, but there may be also some cross links across these. And that's how you're able to understand that when you develop a causal model. And you can develop it this easy with an Excel worksheet. You don't need an external program or anything like that. You just need to know what the variables are, and you can punch all of those into an Excel worksheet and be able to understand the different patterns. Limitations of the case study is you have a small number of cases and you really cannot offer generality or validity in the findings, but it's okay. You may still have high transferability, within your study, but not necessarily high generalizability, which may be okay because again, especially if you're collecting qualitative data, the purpose is not generalizability, so you would be okay in that sense. The intent study of a case can bias the findings as replicability becomes fairly nearly impossible. No one can replicate your study. They look at the same people in the same environment. They ask the same research question and they get a completely different result, right? There's no replication because it's the small numbers, right? And then also because of the qualitative nature of it and the way it was structured, right? These don't always sort of replicate very easily. These are, you can replicate a study, people may replicate them, but to get the same results is kind of almost nearly impossible a lot of the time. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to the lecture on case study. I look forward to reading your responses, and I look forward to seeing you next week.